On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are diving into Star Trek First Contact in our Picard primer. And then we're going to have a song by The Garage inspired by First Contact. It's all right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
David C. Robertson here.
Man.
Yeah.
First Contact, eh?
Uh-huh.
This is one of my favorites, if not my favorite Star Trek movie. I can't remember what I rated them when we did our ratings.
I can't either, and, you know, to be fair, we did say in the review that there was no telling. It depends on the day, but...
yeah, I think this was my top, and yeah, I still feel that way. I really, really love this movie.
Even my least favorite Star Trek movies, though, I enjoy quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. But this one holds a special place in my heart, I think, because it's so well done. It's the height of the Borg. It's the Borg before they kind of were overdone or felt trite in some of Voyager, you know.
Well, this is the moment where we lose the mystery of the Borg, and anything after this feels trite. So, yeah,
maybe that's it.
This is the big revelation. They're like, oh, there's a queen, and now it's just like, oh, now from now on, the queen is going to be the mustache twirling villain of the Borg.
See,
but it was awesome here.
I just rewatched all the Borg episodes of Voyager, and I don't think she's mustache twirly.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously evil from our perspective, but she just like Hugh in the previous episodes we've talked about.
She's not like me.
Just like Hugh, she doesn't think the Borg is a bad thing.
Right.
Like, she's mustache twirly if you want to just say because she's bad, but like, she doesn't think of herself as bad. She thinks of herself as, wanting to save the galaxy from disorder. And that's her, like, just, she's an evangelical Borg, you know?
I need to go back and watch Voyager again. I do. I admit it.
Yeah, I rewatched all the Borg episodes in preparation for Picard because we're not going to have time to do as many as we'd planned on.
Right.
And there's a lot. Actually, we're probably not going to have time to get into any Voyager. Maybe we'll have a 10-minute discussion about 7 of 9.
We'll tackle that in Picard.
Yeah, we didn't make it through all the Picard stuff, so we're getting there. So let's talk about First Contact.
All right.
What's your major? What's your favorite parts? What's your least favorite parts? I don't know. What you got?
I love everything of this movie. Just everything. The one part that is always going to bother me is, of course, why wouldn't the Borg go back in time further? But I have my own headcanon for that. I think they wouldn't go back in time because they were hoping to catch the Vulcans, maybe. Maybe they were going to, like, assimilate and then do the warp jump as it was supposed to happen. Of course,
Oh, yeah.
And then let the Vulcans come, and then they could sneak sleeper Borg onto the Vulcan ship and go back and infest Vulcan.
Interesting. My headcanon for that has always been... we don't know how time travel works in this scenario, and my assumption is that time travel works in such a way that it is costly to do. Like, and maybe it's costlier to go back further, and they're machines, and they're just picking the most efficient time to go back to. That's always been my reasoning for their, like, because we don't see the Borg time travel much, and so clearly they can.
Right.
So why don't they do it all the time? Why haven't they done this before or since? And my logic is because whatever it is, it's costly to them. It costs some sort of fuel or some sort of tachyon whatevers to create these sorts of time travel things. Time travel is interesting in Star Trek because it seems like it's always available when needed.
Yeah. I was confused by why they wouldn't have gone back in time before they got to the Alpha Quadrant, so there wouldn't be a fight and they wouldn't have lost their ship. If they had made it all the way back in that, like, giant cube,
yeah,
it's over.
Sure. You just never know. Maybe they know the history of the Alpha Quadrant. Maybe they know that there's a bunch of Vulcans kicking around that would have given them trouble if they'd been any further away from Earth.
Yeah, but there's no way those Vulcans would have been able to take down a freaking 24th century Borg.
Probably not, but they would have. Maybe they just wanted to disrupt. They're picking their battles, what they want to do in the time travel stream, and they have calculated that if they go back in time, somewhere across the galaxy and then take a 24th century Borg ship across the galaxy, like maybe they never get a chance to assimilate certain technologies because those technologies never exist because they screw up the galaxy in such a way. This is just them trying to take humans off the board because they've been such a thorn in their side all this time.
Yeah.
The humans are the most resistant, as they talk about in Voyager a good bit.
Part of me wonders if it wasn't just the time travel thing was like a plan C or something. That was like a very calculated plan C. We're going to try to attack them now. But if it doesn't work for some reason, we're going to send like this ship off and go into the past. Yeah,
absolutely. And that works pretty well with the theory I had about it being costly to do. You know, maybe they thought they could just take it with force, and when they couldn't, they were like, well, I guess we're doing this very costly option of time travel. Okay, so what do we get special from Picard here? We get Picard realizing that the Borg, he's willing to do a lot to bring down the Borg, including getting all his friends killed. So his revenge, he's Ahab. I mean, and that's the thrust of this movie. He realizes that he has revenge in his heart. And man, when he quotes Melville and he says, if my chest were a cannon, I would plunge my heart at thee.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. It's so good. I would fire my heart at thee or whatever. It's so good and so well acted on his part, and it's so well done with like him and Wolf. Oh gosh, what's her name? Wolford.
Alfre Woodard.
Alfre Woodard. Thank you.
Wolfie.
Black Mariah, whatever, whatever she. Yeah, she's wonderful in this, and I love the juxtaposition of her sort of 22nd century person with Picard, and I love him saying that, and then she has the reference to call him out on the fact that he's Ahab, but then when he quotes it, she says, "I never read it." Love that. Yeah. Love that line a lot. It was really good. I like the development of Data here. I like the fact that he was actually tempted, and rewatching it, I did not remember that he wasn't tempted all along. Like I couldn't remember how long he was tempted. I'd forgotten that line at the end about how at the very end of the movie they say I was tempted for a time, and he says, how long of a time? And he said, so it was 0.423 seconds, and he's like, for an android, that is like an eternity.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, that was fun, and I did enjoy that. I was annoyed with the later installments that they look, you guys have the technology now. Data, I'm sure, was like cataloging this. You could grow skin and put it on this dude so that he could feel goosebumps all the time.
Possibly.
In his quest to be more human, why wouldn't he?
That's possible.
Body modification.
It's possible. I don't know. It may be a issue of ethically sourcing human skin.
They just grow that shit, man. Come on.
Yeah.
It's the future.
Maybe, but that's not what happened in this. I think they actually took a crewman's skin and put it on his face, which, it's so gross.
Yeah.
So gross. Loved so much of this. All the stuff between Picard and Lily is real fun. I like when he first meets her and then shows her space, or shows her Earth from space. That's super fun. I love when they go into the holodeck and fight the Borg with guns. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
just good stuff, man.
The Borg sounds Swedish.
Yeah, the Borg sounds Swedish.
I never got the feeling that this was a specifically a scary film, as many people have said.
I mean, it's definitely, there are horror elements in this film.
There are, but,
It opens in a very horror way with that, like, needle through his eye and the bursting of the thing through his cheek as he wakes up. Like that, all that's real creepy. They definitely are going for the horror elements here.
I think the most horror element of it was, like, when that ensign or whatever she was, like, was calling out to her co-worker, and she climbs up the ladder and screams.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that, but other than that, it was just a Star Trek zombie movie, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. I really did.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes has always been the battle for the deflector array.
Yeah, I think that's my least favorite part of the movie.
Really? And like, I don't know about now. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but just like that when I think of this movie, that's one of the scenes I think of, because it's something you just never got on Star Trek, and there's no reason not to. But like the magnetic boots on the outside of the hull, like that was just fun. It's fun. It's fun little adventure section.
Everything is so slow moving and so like deliberate. It feels like it's like this movie becomes the motion picture for a second. I'm just like, oh God.
Well, to me, that just felt like real space travel,
Oh, yeah, it did.
Oh.
It was just a boring segment for me.
How cool was it to see Reginald Barclay for a minute?
I enjoyed seeing him. Man, he saved a few Voyager episodes for me back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I enjoyed seeing him. By the way, I love James Cromwell as Zefram Cochrane.
Yeah, he's great. Absolutely wonderful.
You told him about the statue?
By the way, I really I wished you'd gotten a little sense that they knew who Lily was. Because they never mention anything about Lily's his history as his co-pilot. They never tell her that she had she was a big part of this, and like it makes me think either Zefram Cochrane like wrote her out of history, or like I don't know. It just was weird. It was weird that Lily doesn't get mentioned at all, or
because she never was.
Well, but she was originally.
No, she wasn't. It's a paradox. Yeah,
it is a paradox, but it's the kind of time travel paradox we put up with.
It was always Riker and LaForge in that cockpit.
I don't agree, but
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know, and we don't know how time travel is supposed to have worked in this.
Yeah, if it's not a paradox, then we're living in an alternate future here.
Yeah, for sure.
Subsequently,
well, they went back and created a timeline where the Borg didn't destroy their Earth, but the Borg still did it. It is a paradox. It's the same thing like in you talk about an end game, how you can go back and change it, but the future that created you, that put you here, still has to exist. So who knows? It just depends on how time travel works, and truth is, we have no idea.
It works different ways in Star Trek depending on what the plot requires.
Exactly. But I, as far as I know, it's never been that kind of time travel like the 12 Monkeys style, where it just always was what it is. I've never known Star Trek to have that, so I wouldn't think that was the case here.
Yeah, I want to know which episodes are the episodes where before McCoy and Scotty give that guy the recipe for transparent aluminum in Star Trek 4. You realize by giving him the formula, you're altering the timeline. Why? How do we know he didn't invent the damn thing?
Yeah, so sloppy. Come on, you got to know about the temporal prime directive, which I don't know if the temporal prime directive existed. No. They probably invented the temporal prime directive. The original series crew necessitated the temporal prime directive.
In the original series, they would just literally just go back in time and check stuff out, and then they had that Air Force pilot show up, and they were like, let's look into his history. No, he never did anything. Yeah, he doesn't have to go back. Oh, wait, his kids did. Damn it. All right, well, he needs to go back and he needs to forget.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, yeah, I love Zefram Cochrane. I really like the Zefram Cochrane's arc in this movie, where he doesn't want to be a great man. I love Riker's line to him. A great man once said, someone once said, "Don't try to be a great man. Just be a man and let history make up its mind," or something like that.
Make its own judgments.
Make its own judgments. And then he said, "Who said that?" And he's like, "You do. 10 years from now."
Right. Rhetorical nonsense.
Who said that? Rhetorical. Yeah, it's really good. Really, really good. But I love, and you know, we've talked about it, I think, before on the cast, how Zefram Cochrane in the original series doesn't seem to line up with this Zefram Cochrane. But I contend that that's because he steps into the role that he's meant to be, you know?
Oh, yeah, dude, totally. Like, when you look at the way he is here and then the way future Zefram Cochrane is in the original series, he is basically Gene Roddenberry. Like, they created Gene Roddenberry within the context of the Star Trek universe. Like, he is a drug addict, drug user, womanizer who didn't actually have a vision but stumbled upon one. His vision was money. And then over time became, like, bought into his own hype, and at the very least acted like he was this, like, you know, great person who envisioned all of this stuff and did all this stuff on purpose.
That is an interesting interpretation of that. I like it.
Oh, I totally think that's what they did.
That's fun. Well, any other big points you want to make about First Contact before we get into trivia and quotes?
Not really. I enjoy everything between Worf and Picard here.
I love the Worf and Picard stuff.
Because DS9 mentioned that the Defiant was specifically made to fight the Borg at some point, this is the only time that it actually makes a ton of sense for Worf to be in one of these movies, I think.
What's his explanation in the last one is the marriage, is that right?
Yeah, he was at the wedding, and I guess he's... You know, he did say at the end of DS9, "I'm not a diplomat," so the Ambassador Worf thing was not going to work out. I mean, but I think there was a deleted scene in Nemesis that brought that up.
Oh, is Nemesis after DS9's over, I guess?
It absolutely is. And apparently after DS9, he's just like, you know what? I want to be with my family again. And he, like, went back and, like, started serving on board the Enterprise again. That's
fun. Huh. Okay. Well, a little bit of a backtrack for his character, but like from I really like all the development, especially with his culture and like him getting to know the Klingons better and everything. I really do love all that in DS9. So I'd like to see him dive more into that.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. Like, he became an ambassador at the end of DS9, and he was like, "I am not a diplomat." Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's fine. And then, you know what? You're not. You aimed a phaser at a view screen.
Yeah.
You're not.
No, he's not.
Q was absolutely right when he said, "Did you eat any good books lately?"
So good.
Yeah, I hated how close a proximity it was that they almost blew up the Enterprise here. I'm glad they didn't. I'm like, can we just stop jumping to, you know, blowing up the Enterprise in every damn movie?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm particularly glad they didn't destroy the Enterprise E because it's so cool. Mm-hmm. You know, I really love it, and the fact that it is not. It survives. It needed to survive. They didn't need to lose two Enterprises in two movies. That would have been too much.
Yeah. But I enjoyed the crap out of this movie, and
yeah, it's great. It's really, really
I don't
great.
think there's a lot to say about it, honestly. Like, I do think that it did fall in line better with the subsequent post Best of Both Worlds Borg episodes with TNG. And I think it fell in line better than I had remembered it did.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say that, like, because of Hugh and Picard's, gamble that his newfound individualism would infect the Borg. I think at the beginning of First Contact, when we're like, oh, the Borg are attacking Earth again, he's like, you know what? That shit didn't work. And he's right back to, like, pre-Hugh Picard, where he's like, it's a Borg, damn it! And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
No, it destroys everything. They destroy everything.
Well, I also think there's a difference between learning to believe that a Borg can be redeemed once they're separated from the Hive, and still wanting to fight the Hive.
Mm-hmm. And I do feel like Picard, like, I feel like they referenced those subsequent, those post Best of Both Worlds episodes when Picard says to Lily, I will not sacrifice the Enterprise. We've made too many compromises already, too many retreats. They invade our space and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds and we fall back. Not again. So I think he's fed up, dude, and I'm on board. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
And I like that he, like, takes a step back and comes back to himself, but I don't know. I like Picard here.
Me too, man. Me too. And I really am just finding, as I do so much of this rewatch, that, like, a lot of Star Trek that I that I don't really think about as my favorite Star Trek, I keep going like, oh wait, that was actually really good. You know what I mean? Like, there's just like I keep finding myself really liking a lot of the Star Trek that I, may have in the past thought was like whatever. It's okay. But yeah, First Contact is so good. First Contact not being that. First Contact is what I say is my favorite movie, and I do love it. But even like you said, Generations and we're going to talk about it next time. But Nemesis, there are some dumbass things in Nemesis. But
yeah,
I don't hate Nemesis as much as I did before after my rewatch of Nemesis.
Yeah, this is I don't hate it, but it's bad.
There's some bad moments for sure, but there's some redeeming value there. So I guess we'll get into that next time. Any quotes or trivia, real quick?
I just like Generations. I have it's all the quotes. I love all the quotes. Everything was Zefram Cochrane, man. Everything about him, taking a leak. Just. I watched First Contact probably. It was one of the most watched Star Trek films from my childhood, so I've got a ton of that stuff memorized, and it's just every line. I just love that movie, and I love the dialogue. This is another Braga and Moore, same guys that did Generations, and all good things. See, as far as trivia is concerned, what's great is, like, Berman out of the gate just really wanted to do another time travel movie and went to Moore and Braga, and they were like, well, we want to do a Borg movie. And they, like, apparently decided right on the spot, like, standing outside of the Hart building, decided, okay, we'll do both. Nice.
It's really fun. I want to write stuff sometimes. Like, the idea of coming up with those big overarching plots is so much fun to me. Like the idea of being like, I want to write this kind of, how can we resolve those two things where they really make sense, and they do a great job of it here, and it's super fun, man.
Yeah. And apparently, like, the initial ideas were they were going to send them back to the Roman Empire, and then they're like, no, Picard and Togo wouldn't work. And then they were going to do the American Civil War, and then settled on the Italian Renaissance. And apparently, according to Moore, there was the story would have found Picard and company searching history for a group of time-traveling Borg. Happening upon a Renaissance village, the crew would hear stories about strange creatures taking over neighboring villages. And then we begin to realize that it's the Borg, and we track them down to a castle near the village where a nobleman runs a feudal society.
Wow.
And yeah, and Data becomes our spy, impersonating an artist's apprentice. And he becomes friends with Leonardo da Vinci, who at the time was working for the noblemen as a military engineer. You would have sword fights and phaser fights mixed together in 15th century Europe. It risked becoming really campy and over the top.
Yeah, for sure.
That all sounds horrible.
That sounds horrible. That sounds like Army of Darkness Star Trek edition.
Like when I read stuff like this, I'm like, oh, this is why Nemesis happened. This is why Insurrection happened. Like certain elements of that were just like, oh man, some of this just like you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one image that kept bringing them back, though, to the time period they actually wound up going to, the birth of the Federation. Braga was obsessed with the image of the Vulcans coming out of the ship, and he said he wanted to see the birth of Star Trek. And to him, that's what made the time travel story fresh. And that's true. Whenever I think of First Contact, I think of the Vulcan coming out of that ship.
Interesting. I definitely, that's a big part of what I think about with this. I mean, it's the name of the movie, it's First Contact. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I think about what's in First Contact, I think I tend to land on the Borg stuff a little more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the movie's called First Contact, and it's very clearly about that first moment of Star Trek. It's really great. It's a great movie. Part
of the reason Lily wasn't more of a legend to these people was because in the original script she was Ruby the photographer.
Oh, funny.
And it would have revolved around them trying to save an injured Zefram Cochrane, and like just pretending to be like Picard pretending to be Zefram Cochrane himself and like making the flight. Yeah.
Well, I like what they did here a lot better.
They eventually got to it, man. They eventually got to what we liked. Yeah,
it's so much fun. All right, well, speaking of Lily, I thought she kind of gets short-shrifted in this movie in that she's at least even if they just have to tell a cover story, she should be the first the person in the story who was his co-pilot. And because it obviously was more than a one-man ship because it took the other two of them to do it. So, I feel like Lily was kind of short-shrifted. So I wrote my song this week from Lily's perspective. Mm-hmm. And this song's called Ahab, and I had a lot of fun writing it. It was...
Let me just say, if they were, in fact, kind of talking about Gene here on the sly...
Right.
It would make sense that Lily got the short shrift because it's not like, Star Trek says created by Gene Roddenberry and DC Fontana.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. So I decided to make my song kind of a tribute to Lily, and it's from Lily's perspective, talking about Picard. So we're still getting that taste of the Picard primer and this Picard album, but through the eyes of Lily, because I always liked her character a lot. And at the time I didn't know who Alfre Woodard was, and now I've seen her other things, and I really love Alfre Woodard. She's so good.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that is about it for us. Check out this song coming up now. This is Ahab. We'll be back next time. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
I see the hate in your eyes, and it's no surprise. You told me what they did. You told me of the hive. Oh, you may try, but you can't deny. You swear you're so evolved, but that's all lies. Yeah, you're just another Ahab with his whale. You picked up the scent, you're on its tail. How far will you go to bring it down? 'Cause your crew will follow you, or just look around. You put on a good ruse that I see right through. Your talk of drawing lines has failed to prove that what you want to do is anything but crude. You just want to make them pay for what they did to you. Yeah, you're just another Ahab with his whale. You picked up the scent, you're on its tail. How far will you go to bring it down? to tell you that they think you're being a fool. They're impressed with all the valiant things they've seen you do. But my name is Lily, and I'm a legend in your time. So I'll be the one to hold this mirror up so you can peer inside. You're just another Ahab with his whale. You picked up the scent, you're on its tail. How far will you go to bring it down? 'Cause your crew will follow you. Just look around. Yeah, they will follow you all the way down.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, or search for the Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And if you want to hear more from David C. Robertson, search for the DC On Screen podcast in your podcast app now, or go to maladjusted.tv for his comedy sketches. If you want to hear more from me, Matthew Carroll, search for the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or the Orville Universe podcast in your podcast app, or check out my music. Just search for Matthew Carroll wherever you listen to music.